Cameron again, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about books, movies, writing, and all things spooky. On this episode of Library Macabre, I have part 4 of my summer book haul. Firstly, I picked up these 2 books of this brand new series for kids. And by the way, most of these books are going to be like spooky children's books, some 80s and 90s YA and middle grade books. And then I also have some fantasy and science fiction paperbacks toward the end. But these books here are the first 2 books in the Monster Street series. So we have book number 1, which is called The Boy Who Cried Werewolf, and book number 2, which is called The Halloweeners. I saw these and immediately got feelings of seeing the Goosebumps books at the grocery whenever my mom was going shopping, and I would go to the book section and I would see the new Goosebump book and I would get really excited. And that's how I felt when I saw these. It was a weird feeling. They were only $4.50 each, but I did see when I got home that there are hardcover editions of these as well. So I might end up taking these back and just ordering the hardcover editions, but I'm definitely excited to read the series. It looks really fun. Speaking of Goosebumps, I do have the new Goosebump book here, which is called Goosebumps Slappy World, The Dummy Meets the Mummy. This is book number 8 in that series. At St. Francis Thrift Store, I found a copy of Frankenweenie, which is the novelization of the Tim Burton movie. It's a nice hardcover. It was only 99 cents, so I had to get it. I like how the pages are actually black. It's really cool. Also at St. Francis, I found book number 2 in the High Tech Howard series. I've never really heard of this series before. I'm not really interested in buying the other books. But this one was called The Halloween Hex, and it takes place at Halloween time. So that's why I wanted to buy this one. My friend David was selling a bunch of vintage horror paperbacks, and he found these and asked me if I wanted them. So he sold these to me for, I think, $10 for both of them, which is a great deal because these are really rare. This is book number 5 in the Private School series, so it is called The Enemy Within, and this is book number 6 called The Last Alien. In my last haul, I showed you all of the vintage horror paperbacks that I got at that bookstore, that they were selling the books for $1 a piece because they wanted to get rid of all their books. I did buy a few young adult titles from there as well. I bought 4 books in the Night World series by L.J. Smith. She's the author of Vampire Diaries, and she wrote this series in the 90s, and there were actually quite a few books in this series. This is just a handful of them. So here we have Spellbinder. Look at these covers. That is great cover art right there. And I know that these books have been reprinted in these really nice hardcover editions, but really you can't beat that original cover art. And then we have Black Dawn and Huntress. And while I was there, I also found all 3 books in the Dark Chronicles series/trilogy by Barbara Streiner. She wrote a lot of books in the Point Horror series for Scholastic. These are actually published by Avon. So we have book number 1, which is called The Dance, book number 2, which is called The Gallery, and book number 3, which is called The Calling. And another book I found at that same store is book number 7 in the Power series. This one's called The Vampire's Kiss. I'd never heard of these ones before. I've never seen them, but I will pick up the other books if I ever do see them. I also got my pre-order of this brand new Chilling Adventures of Sabrina TV show tie-in book. This one's called Season of the Witch. It's the first book in this new series. From Book Outlet, I ordered a copy of Give Me a Kill, which is the final book of the St. Martin's Press Fear Street series. They did a series a couple years ago of 6 books, and now I think Harper does the Return to Fear Street series, so I guess it moved over to Harper. But this was the only book I was missing from that 6-book run, so now I have all 6 books in hardcover. And speaking of Fear Street, I have a couple of original Fear Street books right here. These are first printings, so we have Fear Street Super Chiller. This is called Party Summer. And then we have The Prom Queen. I found these at the library book sale. I work for the bookmobile for my local library, and every summer we take off all of our library books. We put on a bunch of sale books, ones that are withdrawn from the library system or donated, and we take the bookmobile with all of the sale books to all of the different library branches in the county and do book sales. So we get a bunch of donated books every year, and every so often I'll get lucky and I'll get first dibs on some Fear Street books or Goosebumps or something. I got very excited about these because they are in perfect condition in their first printings, and I was just so happy to find them. Another book I picked up at our library book sale was Identity Thief. This is one of the books in the newer point horror series. This came out a few years ago. I think these point horror books focus more on technology. They're probably not good, but I just thought I would pick this up and give it a try. I also found this at the library book sale. It's called How the Spider Saved Halloween, and I love little Halloween picture books like this, especially the older ones. Like, I remember reading this when I was a kid, so seeing this just brought back a lot of memories. The pumpkin looks like an orange. I love it. It's awesome. I also found this at the library book sale. This is called Warren the 13th and the All-Seeing Eye. It's book number 1 in a series, and this is awesome. I mean, this book is completely illustrated all the way through. It's absolutely stunning. I found this for 25 cents. I was like, all right, well, I need to get this. I picked up a few more books at the book sales. This first one here is a classic of my childhood. This is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. I remember reading this every year in school. This is by Barbara Robinson, and I was stunned to see that this is signed. So I picked it up. I had to get it. Same thing for this. This is The Boy Who Owned the School by Gary Paulson. I remember reading Hatchet and a few other Gary Paulson books when I was in school. I had never read this one, but I had to pick it up because it's signed by Gary himself. I also picked up I Spent My Summer Vacation Kidnapped into Space. I love these old middle grade scholastic books from the 80s and 90s. This is a first printing, and it's in really nice shape, and it just looked crazy, so why not? I also found a couple of Sweet Valley books at the sale. So we have Sweet Valley High, number 32, The New Jessica, and then Sweet Valley Twins, number 10, One for the Gang. And then this is book number 8 in the Sweet Valley Junior High series. This is called Cheating on Anna. These covers are not good. I don't like the model covers. I prefer these cheesy illustrated covers, but the title sounds really trashy, so it should be fun. I also found this library copy of Stranger Things Have Happened by Jeff Strand. I read the first chapter of this and I thought it was hysterical. It's about this kid who's trying to become a magician, and it's got that pitch perfect Jeff Strand voice, so I'm excited to read this. Another book I got from Book Outlet was Night Books. This is by J.A. White. I read a bloody disgusting article that said that this was being turned into a movie, so I decided to see if Book Outlet had it, and they did. So there we go. I have a nice hardcover copy of that. Here are a couple more books that I got at that dollar book sale at that bookstore. This is called The Last Lullaby, and then here we have Only Child, both by Jesse Osborne. These are young adult horrors from the 90s. From the same bookstore, I got The Accident, which is by Todd Strasser. This is a Laurel Leaf suspense book from 1990. It's a first printing, and it is signed by the author. That for $1, as well as the 4th book in the Not Quite Human series, which is a young adult sci-fi series. This one's called Reckless Robot, and I just had to get that because the cover is awesome and the series sounds crazy. It's like RoboCop for teens. And then I also picked up one of the Point Crime books. This is called Formula for Murder. I also got a bunch of fantasy and sci-fi paperbacks from that same bookstore, all $1 each. I have a couple of books in the Timescape series. So here we have Hampire, which is by Scott Baker. I just thought the cover art was really cool. Another Timescape book is Night Child, also by Scott Baker. Oh, and here's another Timescape book. This is called A Sense of Shadow by Kate Wilhelm. And then here is Tales from the New Twilight Zone, which I believe is based off of the 80s series. Yeah, this is from 1989, so it's based off of the 80s Twilight Zone series. And then we have Volume 2 of Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories, which is one of my favorite TV shows. Here we have Judgment Day, which is by Pauline Glenn Winslow. Now, this looks like a horror novel to me, but it's listed as fantasy. But the cover looks very much like a horror novel. The synopsis on the back, end of the world, demons. It even says it is not for the squeamish. So it seems like a horror, but it says fantasy on the spine, so we'll go with that. And then here we have a couple of books in the World of Darkness series, Werewolf and then Vampire. So these just look really cheesy and fun. I have a few more spooky middle grade books. Here is The Horrible Swamp Monster, which I have a paperback edition of this one, but I much prefer hardcover, and also I like this cover a lot more than my paperback. Here we have Strange Forces, which says on the back, from the world of Strange Matter. Strange Matter was a series of kind of like a science fiction version of Goosebumps. I used to read those when I was a kid. And I never knew that there was another spin-off series called Strange Forces. These are actually much larger than the Strange Matter books. Strange Matter books were no bigger than a Goosebump book. Didn't know about this, but I'm glad I found it. I also have a book by Betty Wren Wright. Betty Wren Wright was one of my favorite authors when I was a kid. She wrote a lot of great ghost stories for children. This one is called The Phantom of Five Chimneys. And then here we have Never Say Boo to a Ghost and Other Haunting Rhymes. I'll pick up anything that looks remotely spooky. The Ghost That Came Alive by Vic Crum. I remember getting this from the library when I was a kid, but I don't think I ever actually read it. The Ghost on the Hill by Grace Macabre. I remember reading one of her books called The Haunting of Third Grade, I think. I read that actually in third grade, so I saw this and I thought I would give this one a shot too. I finally found a copy of Shivers book number 1, The Enchanted Attic. I've been collecting the Shivers books ever since I was a kid, and I never owned a copy of this one, so I'm glad I finally found it. And then here we have book number 5 in the Last Apprentice series. This one's called Wrath of the Blood Eye. These books are awesome. I've read the first couple of books in the series. It's a mix of fantasy and horror, and these are actually middle grade books. They're aimed at like 10-year-olds, but they can be pretty violent and very scary. Here are a few more books that I got at the library book sale. I found 3 books in the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys Super Mystery series. I finally found a copy of book number 1 in the series, so I was excited to find that. I also have New Year's Evil and High Survival, which I already owned a copy of, but these are all brand new, so I got this one to replace my other copy. I also ordered a few of the Nancy Drew Diaries books from Book Outlet. Here we have book number 8, which is called The Magician's Secret, book number 11, which is called The Red Slippers, book 13, The Ghost of Grey Fox Inn, and book 16, The Haunting of Heliotrope Lane. And then I also have a couple of Hardy Boys books here. So we have Hardy Boys Case Files, book number 45, In Self-Defense, and then number 71, which is called Real Horror. I love that cover. And then here we have just the original Hardy Boys series. This is called The Mummy Case. It's book number 63. Here are a couple more books that I got at the library book sales. Here is Octagon Magic by Andre Norton. This is a fantasy book, middle grade. Just thought the cover was really cool and kind of creepy and weird. I found another book of the Animorphs series to add to my collection. This is book number 43. It is called The Test. And of course, it's got that cover inlay right there. And I also found a couple of Babysitters Club books. I've been wanting to buy some of these old Babysitters Club books. I wasn't into these when I was a kid, but now I'm just so nostalgic for the 90s that I'll really read anything I can get my hands on. So here we have Babysitters Club number 48, Jesse's Wish, and one of the Super Mysteries. This is called Babysitters Beware. And then last but not least, my very good friend Cami, who has her own YouTube channel called Cami's Corner. I definitely recommend you watch her videos. She's a great horror reviewer. She was very, very sweet and sent me a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I was telling her that I lent my copy to somebody years ago and never got it back. And lo and behold, this shows up in my mailbox. So she found a really old book club edition, and she included this nice note and everything. So thank you, Cami. You are a sweetheart and you're awesome. So yay, I can finally reread To Kill a Mockingbird because it's been a very long time. There we go. Those are all the books. I'm just so tired. My voice is almost gone. I'm gonna go ahead and say good night, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one. Later, creeps. Hey creeps, thank you again for visiting my channel and for subscribing. If you would like to see more, I am on Twitter and Instagram @BookMovieGuy. I am also the co-creator of the Library Macabre Books Facebook page. Also, I am a horror author, so if you would like to read any of my work or check out any of the pages that I mentioned, I will leave the links down below in the graveyard. And lastly, I am on Patreon, so I wanted to use this time to extend a very warm thank you to all of these awesome creeps over here. Those are all of my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to say thank you so much, guys, and stay spooky.